I always think we have to separate the tech from the economic system it is in and understand what we're talking about. Uh, I gave this example in my class. Imagine an AI physician's assistant. I think that would be phenomenal, right? It would be good at researching, good at diagnostics, good at reading charts and tests, and make the doctor a better doctor. Two ways this could go, right? The doctor has this assistant and is able to spend more time with patients, be more uh, empathetic, have a better bedside manner, be a better doctor. Or the company who owns the medical practice gives that doctor 5 times the patients and fires the 4 other doctors.
Thanks for joining for this episode of the TechSpective Podcast. I have with me Mr. Bruce Schneier. So I don't think you actually need any introduction, Bruce, but if you'd like to give a little bit of background on yourself for anyone who maybe doesn't know.
Oh, I don't know. I've been doing cybersecurity since before the term was invented. I speak, I now teach, I write books. A lot of them are back there. And I don't know. I like being on podcasts.
Well, I really appreciate you joining me. I've also been doing this for a few minutes, and so like way back when I kind of first got started on the writing side, I was doing the internet and network security uh, channel or whatever for about.com, and I started doing like book reviews and product reviews, and I remember reading Beyond Fear, and I really liked it because that's a good segue actually, I think, to A Hacker's Mind, because one of the things I really liked about Beyond Fear that I think is also present in A Hacker's Mind, and I think it's been present basically as kind of a thread through your books, is this sort of tying together of what I might generally consider to be cybersecurity concepts, because I'm in a cybersecurity bubble, but tying them back to the real world. So like, Beyond Fear is like, it's like your books are almost not really, they're not really about cybersecurity. They're about more psychology almost. And it's like tangential that they're related to cybersecurity. Um,
And I think it's interesting, right? I mean, because we're living in a world where everything is a computer. So computers are no longer separate. They're your car, they're your refrigerator, they're how you talk to your friends, they're everything. So right, cybersecurity is everything security. And those are, for people who don't know, those are 2 books of mine. Beyond Fear came out in the early 2000s, and it really was a post terrorist attacks of 9/11 book,
right.
thinking about how security works in our society very generally. It is about computers, but it's about more general security policy. And then Hacker's Mind, which was 2022, is really taking that thinking even more generally, how we as people hack social systems, economic systems, the same way that hackers hack computer systems. And in a lot of ways, this is my way of thinking. I am a generalist. I'm always thinking meta, meta, meta. And right now, I'm doing a lot of writing about AI, and it's not really writing about AI. It's writing about democracy. It's writing about economics. It's writing about
Right.
capitalism sucking. But AI brings all of those things into focus in an important way. And I like that. I like that my books are not are Norton is my primary publisher, right? They're a mainstream publisher. It's not a tech book. It used to
Right.
be published by Wiley, which published computer books. Now I'm published by someone who publishes mainstream, like nonfiction current events, which I really think I'm writing about.
Well, it's like in A Hacker's Mind, one of the things one of the illustrations you kind of use is to say that hacking isn't necessarily a computer thing. It is a kind of, it's a mindset, and that same mindset can apply to being a political lobbyist. It can apply to being a tax attorney. It can apply
Right. I mean,
to
right now there's like this thing about Mitch McConnell. Is he alive or is he dead? And that's being hacked because there's some deadline about who can appoint his successor, and Democrat or Republican. Right? Hacking is just bending the rules. The filibuster is a hack, invented in ancient Rome, actually. So Pliny the Elder, he's in the
yeah.
Roman Senate, and the rules say that all business must be conducted by sundown. And he looks around and he thinks, if I never stop talking, nothing will get done. And boom, he invents the filibuster. Right? It's a way to use the rules in a way that wasn't intended. And I think of that very generally.
That okay, so it's very interesting. So okay, so there's let me start with after A Hacker's Mind, you also co-wrote Rewiring Democracy.
I just hold some
Um,
of these up, right? So here's my book on AI and democracy.
yes.
Yes.
And interestingly, I just had on recent episode of this podcast, Beth Novak, who wrote Rebooting, Reboot Democracy or whatever.
And
Um,
Beth is great. I mean, I think her work is phenomenal. So I'm glad you had her on.
um, but when you talk about kind of like Planet of the Elder and breaking the rules, I feel like nobody who has ever seen this podcast or knows me will expect me to mince words at all. I am not a fan of our current administration. Wasn't a fan of 1.0 version of the administration. I'm not a fan of 2.0 version of the administration. Um, the one thing I think, but where this relates though is from day one, Trump and his administration have done that exact thing. They've looked at the rules and they basically there are so many things that were just protocol. They were
Right, we're
just
norms. They were
this is the
well,
way
there's a
we
couple of things. There's actually breaking the rent. See, hacking isn't necessarily breaking the rules. Hacking is realizing there's a loophole in the rules. So you
and
talk
they've
about
done that.
norms, right? Norms don't have any enforcement mechanism, which makes that easy to ignore. Uh, I think about it, even more generally. Uh, Tax loopholes are hacks, right? They're things in the tax code the designers didn't intend. And if you find a tax loophole, like a hacker who can break into a system, you can essentially, break the tax code, pay less taxes than you should. Uh, I mean, yes, I think there's been a lot. Hang on, my light just came off. Uh, that has been done recently. I mean, certainly the Republicans are great at hacking rules, also actually outright breaking rules. But hacks to me fill that middle ground.
Right.
Not technically illegal. It's like, so here's an example. I don't know if you know hockey. So curving a hockey stick was a hack. Game is played for decades until someone, and we know his name, I forget it, realized that if he curves his hockey stick,
He can
the
catch the
puck will
puck
go
easier.
much faster,
Yeah.
gets air, changes the game. And the rules didn't were the rules
The
were silent on
the New
this.
York Yankees did that this year with baseball.
Okay, what they do?
They invented the torpedo bat. And so like
Okay,
the bat has just been the bat, and
mhm.
there are written guidelines for the length, the weight, the like what
Okay.
defines a bat. Um, they took the fat part of the bat and moved it, and
Oh,
so
so
instead of being at
didn't
the
change the
end,
weight, they changed the distribution.
right, and they put the fat part more in the sweet spot, and all of a sudden,
Okay.
the Yankees players were hitting the ball out of the park
All
on a
right,
more
so
regular
what
basis.
happens in most systems of rules is that after the hack is invented, either the game changes, like the tax code changes, or the people in charge of the rules patch. So in hockey, there have been several patches about how much curve you can have and what the rules are. What happened in baseball?
As far as I know, they've just accepted it. They said, "Hey,
So
technically,
right, so
technically,
so
this
they've
is
accepted the
right."
new. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great story from Formula One racing, like in the 70s. Someone shows up on the track with a six-wheeled car. And everyone says, you can't have a six-wheeled car. And they pull out the rule book and say, show me. And it turns out the rules were silent on the number of wheels a car could have, but they did patch that. So right
Right.
now, if you open up the rule book, you'll see that a car can have no more, also no less, don't get any ideas, than four wheels. But sometimes, like you mentioned in baseball, this bat, the game changes. The hockey stick, it
Right.
ended up being a more exciting game.
But
So people liked
there
it.
have been other, there have been, like, so professional baseball players are not allowed to use aluminum bats because if they
Right.
started using
That's right.
aluminum bats, you'd have to build stadiums 3 times larger. And
Dunking in basketball was originally a hack.
yeah,
I always think about the infield
that's
fly
a
rule
funny one
being
because it's like they played basketball forever shooting the ball, and then someone said, "What? Why wouldn't I just set the ball in there? Like why
right.
why
I'm
wouldn't I
tall
take
enough.
the?"
I can jump high. Let's just do it. I always think about the infield fly rule, and I'm thinking like it's 1916, and there's some second baseman, and the situation is like as it is, and it's a pop fly, and he looks up, he looks around, and says, "Wait a second, I could just let that drop, and I'll make a double play." And then everyone says, "Wait, that's ridiculous." So they pass a rule
Right?
preventing that hack.
Do you know?
And we could do the same thing. I mean, sports is fun,
Yeah,
but do it in politics. Gerrymandering is a hack. All the procedural rules and tricks that Congress does are hacks. These are all unintended. But when you get to politics, unlike sports, right? In sports, there's a legislative body that says no six-wheel car. Dunking is okay. You only curve your hockey stick this much. Like we want to make the game fun and fair and not dangerous. But when you get to politics or the tax code, it's much harder to hack. I'm sorry, it's much harder to patch
right.
because there's constituencies and lobbying and influences. Microsoft, you see a vulnerability in Windows, they'll patch it next Tuesday. US Congress, it might take a decade or more or never.
Right. Yeah. And like I was saying, like there I think even and I'm pretty engaged politically. I'm like I'm a fan, so I follow politics and I always have. Um I was
Weird to call that being a fan, but I get what you're saying.
I I was a little bit shocked when like even in Trump 1.0 when he started doing things, and I'd be like, you can't do that, like, that's not how we do things. And then it's like and then they'd be like, yeah, but that's just a norm, it's just a protocol, like it's not defined anywhere, it's just the way we had a gentleman's agreement, to not do that or whatever. And Trump came in and said, yeah, well, what if I just don't honor your gentleman's agreement and I do it
Right.
different? And it's like, and you're right, it's like, well, there's no enforcement for that, there's nothing we can actually do about it because it wasn't a rule in the first place, it was just a way we've always done it.
And I think that's right. Now, so I think I said earlier that there's no way to enforce norms. That's actually not true. I should correct that. But norms are enforced socially, right? So, there are norms right now for our Zoom conversation, for this podcast. If I broke them, if I did something weird, and let's pretend this is live and you can't edit it out,
Okay.
like you wouldn't invite me back. Other people would hear like, don't invite Bruce Schneier on your podcast to do this weird thing. So, right, we enforce norms through social interaction. And that actually works really well at the small scale, right? You're having a party, you invite friends, you have coworkers. But at a large scale, a city, a state, a country, it's really hard to enforce a norm because it's social enforcements.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Um, so let's pull this back a little bit. Like when, and this kind of ties, I think this kind of ties both A Hacker's Mind and Rewiring Democracy. But let me back up and give a little bit of a framework. Obviously, we've watched for the last couple of years the evolution from generative AI to agentic AI, and everything is AI, AI, AI. My kids, who are all, I have 7 kids, they're all adults. Um,
Congratulations on a successful launching.
Thank you. All 7 of them are pretty adamantly opposed to the concept of AI for various reasons. I mean, some of it's the IP theft, some of it's the impact on the climate, some of it's just there's a lot of reasons they're opposed, but they're adamantly opposed. And I, in my world, am like, okay, listen, I understand your arguments. I don't disagree with the things that you're saying. Also, the genie is out of the bottle. So like so I keep framing it sort of like this isn't like a if you don't use AI it'll go away. Like I'm like you need to figure out how to like we can work on like well how do we make it better for the climate? We can work on how do we keep intellectual property from being stolen. But I don't think you're going to get rid of AI.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think a lot of people's problems with AI are actually not AI problems, they're capitalism problems,
Fair.
right? I mean, so it, that the AI steals copper material. Technology doesn't do that. Corporations do that for profit-making reasons. The fact that it is obsequious and overconfident, the fact that it's replacing humans, right? These are all corporate decisions. And I always think we have to separate the tech from the economic system it is in and understand what we're talking about. I gave this example in my class. Imagine an AI physician's assistant. I think that would be phenomenal, right? It would be good at researching, good at diagnostics, good at reading charts and tests, and make the doctor a better doctor. Two ways this could go, right? The doctor has this assistant and is able to spend more time at patients, be more uh, empathetic, have a better bedside manner, be a better doctor. Or the company who owns the medical practice gives that doctor 5 times the patients and fires the 4 other doctors. The tech isn't doing
Right.
that,
Right.
right? And US versus, let's say, France, they're going to go different ways. Energy use, I think about a lot. Uh, it's weird. It's not as bad as the numbers show because you have to how to say compared to what. I mean, AI use is less than streaming media on the internet, and no one complains about that. And also, it's really interesting. It's going down. It is the smaller, cheaper models are turning out to be really, really good. And you can run them on your own equipment. I mean, Apple's
Right.
working on an AI that'll work on your phone, like on your phone. So actually do think that this building of data centers, massive building of data centers, is looking to look like the undersea cable fiber optic bubble from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
We're not going to need them, and that
Well,
I think it's really interesting. We'll see how that goes,
and to
but
your
I think
point,
it is going to change.
a lot of the there's the power consumption, but there's a lot of the debate I see about the data centers has to do with the water consumption. And then I read a thing a little while ago that said, well, look, part of the problem is it's not that AI itself or data centers themselves are inherently consuming all this water. It's that companies have chosen to use the water inefficiently. Like
That's right.
we can refine that process and
Yeah,
use a
and also,
fraction
yeah,
of
I
the
mean, a couple
water.
of things, right. And right, there's a lot of externalities. They're taking the resource and not paying for it. It's also very local, happens in poorer communities. So power, water, there's not an infrastructure. I mean, these are all capitalism issues. And on the plus side of the water is not extractive, right? It is like us using water for cleaning. It goes back into the system, right? It's not like water that's extracted and put into bottles and sold as bottled water. So it leaves the system. So,
Right.
it,
Which
it's
different capitalists,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm
It,
actually outside of
it-
Houston now, but I'm from Michigan, and it's been a long time
right.
like thing that Michiganders are like. I still to this day do not understand the contract we have, but like Michigan sold the water rights to Nestle for like $1. And so they're
I
just
know.
like bottling like so a foreign national company has like the rights to bottle up the fresh water in Michigan and sell it to me.
So I'm really in favor of AI skepticism, but it really is skepticism of the market and the companies. The tech's going to do, I think, some really great things. It'll do some horrible things, right? The tech is fundamentally a power enhancer. It makes you as a human more powerful. And if you as a human want good things, great. If you want bad things, it'll help you as well. We say that in our book on AI and democracy.
Yeah.
Right? If you want more democracy, AI will deliver. If you want less democracy, AI will deliver.
Did you happen to see? I think it came out earlier this year. The AI doc, the documentary movie.
I did not.
Okay, I would recommend it. It was good.
Okay.
Um, it was interesting because it's kind of framed in three parts. So like the part one is, and he's interviewing like actual like experts and people in the field. He interviews Sam Altman. He interviews Dario Amodei.
Nice. So you
Um,
guys get good access.
yeah. Um, but part one is so like the first third of the documentary is the doomsayers, and so they're all basically saying, "Hey, we're screwed. Skynet already happened. The ship sailed." The
Right.
second group are all of these idyllic utopia, where they're like, "Oh no, AI is going to cure world hunger and cancer by next Tuesday." There's no AI can do no wrong. It's amazing. And then it ends with a more reasonable sort of like, okay, both of these things are true.
And I think it's all, both are true. A lot of these are both are true.
Yeah. And so it was good. I would say, like when I talked with Beth about her book, and we were talking about
Mhm.
democracy and stuff. Like one of the things I said, because her book all frames it a lot of the same way of saying, look, like there's a lot of good you can do. There's so many good things you can do with AI for public policy, for like it can do so many good things. So instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, let's try to figure out, well, how do we use this for good? Um, one of the points I made though is I was like, part of my problem isn't with the AI itself per se. It's with the oligarchs behind the AI.
And that's right.
And
And right, it's not a tech problem, it's a
right.
capitalism problem.
And the
It's
fact
a
that
money
like
in politics. It's an income inequality problem.
and
100%.
and even if you say, I would say right now, where I sit right now, I tend to lean towards anthropic because I feel like at least philosophically they say
They
the right
have really
things.
good marketing as the moral AI. I
Right.
don't think they are. I think it's basically just marketing, but they do have really good marketing. Lots of
Well,
people
okay,
think it's
but based on that
moral AI.
marketing, that's where I lean. But also, I'm like, it is a matter of like, as we become dependent on these things, and as they become just mainstream, everyone just relies on them. If the model is tweaked on the back end, it would be in like subtle ways, like you wouldn't even know. Like the AI is just going to start giving you answers that kind of like start drifting off this way.
Well,
And
this is again an issue. Do we trust? I mean, just like when you go to Google and ask it a question, you often get answers that someone paid Google to give you, right? You get paid search results. And
right,
how soon is that going to happen in AI? They need a business model. And how do I
I
know that the advice I'm getting isn't being,
with
modified on the back end?
with Google in particular, I feel like that already happened or it will happen immediately because okay, so they made this shift from hey, we're going to give you the top 10 results and whatever. I mean, like it's still there, but it's kind of buried behind their AI response, and they've been very public about saying, hey, we're just going to AI summarize this for you. And then the very next question becomes, who decides what goes in the AI summary? Like, how are you
Right.
weighting
And,
that?
and more importantly, what happens to the internet? I mean, the reason you are recording this podcast is so people will listen to it. The reason I write essays, people will read them. If the AI just summarizes your podcast and my essays and everyone just reads the summary, we're going to stop creating. Like, we're
Right.
not creating for AI summarizers, we're creating for other humans. And I think we're running a risk right now of losing what makes the internet.
Yeah. And from a written, like if I look at just the written content, um, the on the one hand, you have the pushback from people who are like, well, it's got M dashes, so it must be written by AI. And I've had that fight many times where I'm like, look, I've been writing for a long time. I use M dashes because they make sense. And the reason,
Like, where do you think the AIs learned how to use M
right,
dashes? From
that's
people like
always my
us.
argument. Always my argument is like, well, the reason the AI writes like that is because they trained it on my writing from the past 20 years.
Right.
But the problem I've illustrated to people is I'm like, look, what happens is somebody goes to ChatGPT and they say, hey, write me this thing, and then they just publish it. Well, that creates a self-feeding downward spiral. Like now generative AI is going to train on that AI slop.
So it is actually interesting. There's a really good research paper from Cambridge that talks about this. And it turns out that AI that trains on its own exhaust is worse. So we can show that it gets worse. So, and I think about this, right? You imagine a music AI, it produces Mozart. Trained on its output, it produces Salieri, right? Trained on its output, it produces nonsense.
And
And
eventually you get to Weird Al Yankovic.
well, maybe that's better. So what this really means in a weird way is that guaranteed human writing is more valuable. Right.
Right.
So
So if I'm
Reddit
if
before
I'm
2022,
if
like
I'm
it's more
OpenAI, if
valuable.
I'm Anthropic, I would be I would want to be paying like actual human beings to write, so I could be like, okay, this is my like real training model, is like I need guaranteed human writing that I can train on.
Yeah, that you need the volume, but you really can't like commission it. What I think
Yeah.
the next frontier is, and it scares me, I'm going to say it 'cause I think people are thinking about it, is there's an enormous amount of human generated language that is not captured by AI. And it's everything that happens out on the street, everything that
So
happens in your house, human to human, real world, face to face conversation. So
so
how
my so
soon
my
before
phone
these
my phone microphone is picking up my conversation right
How
now.
soon before a company pays you? I'll pay you $10 a month to keep your phone on all times so I can record everything you say and to set around you to train my AIs. Super
Yeah.
creepy, super bad. Yikes. I think it's coming.
Yeah. Or I mean, they could already do it with all the flock cameras that they're putting on every corner of
Yeah, but that's visual. I mean, that's got its own benefit, but I'm talking audio.
well, you just got to put mics in them. Put a microphone in, start
But
capturing.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I had read a review. I think it was your own review of rewiring. That's hard to say. Rewiring democracy, um, where you talked about that you felt like maybe you guys pulled punches, or that like part of it was that you were talking about
Well,
like by
also
the time the book is published, like that
right,
things
right.
changed.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not a book for the moment, and it only sold okay because it's not a book for the moment. We're writing this in 2023 and 2024, and we put it to bed in like May of 2024. And honestly, it's a really good book for the Harris administration. Right? Trump appears, and our book, which is all about how to use AI to make democracy better, isn't really what people want to read. They want to read how to use AI to save democracy.
Right. I mean, it definitely is a shift, and I think that's an interesting. I hadn't thought of it, but that is an interesting way to think about it. To say like, hey, had things gone differently in 2024, we would be having a very different conversation about AI and the direction of AI as a and how to use AI. So it is very different of like versus how to use AI to make democracy better versus how do I use this to save
Right.
AI, save democracy. And we're coming up on the midterm elections in November, and that's I've been telling everyone for 6 months now that I'm simultaneously very excited and anxious for this to happen, and also sort of petrified because I'm like it
Yeah,
could go
right.
either
It,
way.
it,
And
it, it feels like the end times. It feels like things are hanging in the balance. I know.
right, yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, recent elections I think have been encouraging to me. Like, so on the one hand, if you would ask me, and then I'm going to go off on like a small conspiracy theory vent, but like following the
Don't
2024
don't do
election,
that. But I'll keep going. Okay.
but following the 2024 election, like I saw different things going around about, well, like did they hack the election? Like did Trump actually win, etc.
Yes.
And 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 to the extent that I gave any credence to it at all, and kind of thought, well, wait, did they? Um, the recent elections, I think, sort of undermine that because like Democrats keep winning. And I'm like, well, if they could hack elections, don't you think they would? And which I mean, I could use the same argument in reverse because Republicans have been saying for years that Democrats are doing this, that, and the other thing, and we're cheating and
Yeah. I
stealing
mean,
elections. It's like
really.
if you think we could
I
steal
know it's
elections, we would have stolen it.
and I know it's easy to blame conspiracy when things don't go your way. but really the elections have been accurate. We need to say that again and again and again and again and again. Even if our side loses, even if your side loses. And it's weird because, I mean, but getting back to my computer security uh, hat, these are two things are true. One is there are insecurities in our election infrastructure, sometimes serious ones. And two, to date, our elections have been reliable and accurate. Both of those things are true. And it's hard for people to keep both of those in their head because losing feels so bad.
Yeah, I was watching the debate yesterday. Again, I'm in Texas, but I'm from
Which
Michigan.
debate? Who's debating? I don't even know.
I was watching a debate of the Senate primary in Michigan because there's an establishment
Okay.
Democrat running against the Democratic Socialist in the primary, and as far as I can tell, fingers crossed, I think the Democratic Socialist is going to crush it. But
Right now, people are pissed off at the Democrats because they're feckless. So anybody who stands up and says, I'm going to do, it gets a lot of support.
for
People
sure.
want someone to do something.
Well, I saw a recent critique after the like the primary elections in New York and the people endorsed by Mamdani like basically swept the field. And someone did like a critique where they're like, look, like people want authenticity and action, and they're really tired of talking points. They're really tired of
Yeah.
giving
I
a
mean,
canned response.
things feel important, and income inequality is greater than it's ever been. Getting back to hacking, when the rich and powerful hack, they do better. So imagine you find a vulnerability in the tax code. Like you find a bug, you find a hack. What are you gonna do? Make a few $100s, a couple of thousand if it's a good one? Billionaire finds it. Goldman Sachs finds it. And they make millions more easily. Right? So hacking is, in a
There,
sense, skewed to your raw power level.
there's a hack, there's a pending hack like that going on right now with, and I don't remember all of the details, but basically the Dodd-Frank Act, made it so that there's a cap on what banks can charge for like debit
I
card
saw
fees.
this, right? And
And and the
if they
banks the
say
banks found a
you say
hole where they said if we own the infrastructure, there's no cap. The
yeah,
rule was written about the interaction between two organizations. So now the banks are trying to buy the infrastructure because then they're uncapped.
I read that yesterday, and yes, right, that is a hack, right? I mean, it's quick definition. It is a loophole in the rules. It is unintended, unanticipated by its designers, gives the person who found it an advantage of some kind, in this case, monetary. And unlike a bug in Microsoft Windows, it's going to be really hard to close because suddenly there's now an array of lobbyists that are going to lobby to keep this bug open, right? To keep this hack legal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and going back to what you kind of said in the beginning, when it relates to these bugs, when it relates to like when it comes to patching democracy, um, not only is it a cumbersome process, sort of by definition, but even when you can get it moved along, it's a slow process, and then you've got lawsuits to try to shut it
Right,
down.
right.
Then it gets to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court
Right. I mean,
is
nobody sues Microsoft and says, keep that bug that lets me take over other people's Windows accounts open, right? That doesn't happen.
right.
Or in sports where we started, right? There is a governing body that will decide on the hack. Do we like it because it makes the sport better, like dunking in basketball or curving your hockey stick? Or are we going to ban it because it makes the game dangerous
Right.
or unfair?
Well, like there was another example for that one of at one point they I want to say it was Titleist invented a golf ball. They put more
Mhm.
dimples on the golf ball. They did
There
engineering,
you
and all of
go.
a sudden,
Right,
in this
right.
golf
And there's a
ball,
hack.
you could hit it like another 50 yards.
Right.
And the PGA said no, we need to ban that golf ball. And it's like, listen, it's not any. We don't have anything against Titleist, but like the golf courses are the way the golf courses are. We
Right,
can't
right.
redesign the golf
That's
courses.
a really good example. Remember when in football that someone realized that you could run out of bounds, run downfield, and then run back into bounds. And that was
Right.
done until the sport said, wait, no, that doesn't count. Like
Right.
it's like having a six-wheeled car. You just can't do that.
Right. But like, so like I say, but in politics, not only does that not really exist, but to the extent that it exists, we're asking
Partisans to make
we're
those
asking
decisions.
partisan when we're asking them to police themselves. It's like
Yes.
when you say, well, hey, we should cap the campaign donations. It's like, okay, well, we're asking the people who are accepting the campaign donations to vote on capping the campaign donations.
Yes, right. That doesn't work out well. But of course, that's a system we have. We don't have anybody above the system who can modify police and ensure the system is working, right? And like getting back to another topic, like maybe we can imagine an AI doing that. The benevolent dictator AI. I think that'll go badly, but we could write a fun science fiction story with that premise. Like you need an AI to keep democracy in line.
Right. Well, I mean, and I go back to decades of all the various Star Trek franchises, and it's like I think there are examples of both the positive and the negative ends of this spectrum from the Star Trek universe.
Yeah,
Um,
they're actually really good at in the next generation certainly of hitting interesting moral questions. And science fiction often is, freed from the constraints of the world, you can talk about big things. People don't read science fiction and think it's about the future.
right.
It's actually about the present using tropes of
Well,
the future.
this is I mean, I think especially original Star Trek. I mean, original Star Trek was very much
The,
Starfleet is the United States, the Klingon Empire is the Soviet Union, and we can get away with saying a lot of things that we can't openly
Mhm.
say about the Soviet Union because we're
In
calling
a
them
weird
Klingons.
post-scarcity world.
Right.
The replicator means that normal wants don't exist. And and that really changes the economy. They talk about that sometimes, but no one has to work. You work because you want to. Like labor is not needed. It is bettering yourself.
Right.
It, it's
I so
personal choice.
I've had this conversation on this podcast a few different times when we talk about, like early on, everyone I had on talking about AI from like vendors would talk about, you know, there was a committee meeting where they decided that the mantra was AI is not here, you're not going to replace jobs. We're not here to take your job. And at some point I shifted the conversation and I
But
was
it's
like,
not the companies, right? I mean, so not the AI companies. It's every other company. Now, I'll
right.
say like no corporation ever wants to hire humans. Humans are a necessary evil to get the job done. If the corporation can do the job with zero humans, they do it in a second.
Well, right. I mean, they work,
Right?
the AI can work 24/7. It doesn't take PTO. It doesn't have sick days. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get things wrong. And Daniel Meister talks about this. He's a good AI writer. It's not the bar for replacing humans is just really. It's not that AI can do a great job. Because humans are really terrible. Right? They get things wrong. They
I,
make mistakes.
I've
They
had that
go on
conversation. I think it
vacation.
was
They
with,
have their own agenda. And so the bar is really, really low to replace humans with AIs. Now,
right.
as a capitalism issue here, the tax on capital is less than the tax on labor. So, all things being equal, you could replace a human with an AI, you save money. That's not good, but that's the way the system works.
Yeah. Well, so I've had that conversation where we said, look, like it's not that you need the AI to be perfect. You just need the AI to be as good or better than the human. As long
Or
and
not as good. So, doesn't have to be necessarily good. So, for example, I am way better at looking at an email and telling you if it's spam than an AI is. I merely am much better at that. But at a million emails per second, doesn't matter. A worse AI is a better solution because it's faster.
yeah.
So you don't always need
Right.
better is not monolithic.
Well, what I was going to say, tying this back to Star Trek, is that I've had the conversation a few times where I said, look, we keep saying AI is not going to take your jobs, and I'm here to say, ultimately, I want it to. Like, I
As
think the
long
hard
as you
part
have
is getting
another
there.
way of feeding
Well,
yourself.
right, that's what I'm saying. The hard part is getting there, like from where we are
Right.
today. Like, ultimately, I want the Star Trek universe, but in order to get there, you have to have universal basic income. You have to have free
Or
healthcare. You have to
something, right?
have,
We need some way to deal with, in the United States, so much of your identity and your benefits and your everything is tied to your job.
right.
And if the job goes away in a real sense, we need other ways to moor all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, you had talked in across both books, really, I think, about, you know, the hacking nature of, finding these loopholes, whether it's tax codes or financial markets, et cetera. And I think you made the point that, like, getting these things get hacked by whoever has the resources to find the gaps, that whoever has the time and the resources to go figure out where is the hole.
Right.
Um, do you think that AI narrows that advantage for ordinary people, or does it widen
Yeah.
it?
See,
Is it just that the
I don't
powerful will
think,
become more powerful?
it's not the AI, it's the people. Man, remember when I mentioned that tax loophole. You have the same AI as Goldman Sachs. You find the loophole, you save a few hundred. Goldman Sachs finds a loophole, they make millions. So the AI is a power enhancing technology, right? It enhances the power of people who use it. If you have more raw power to begin with, the AI will make you even more powerful. So in general, it seems to scale with the power of the human before the process starts. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. We could do it a different way. I think about this. Let's, I don't know, take an example of AI assisted attorneys. So there's an enormous amount of AI tech in the legal field right now because there's so much money in this business. So there are two ways this could go generally. Either it makes the best attorneys even better, or it makes the average attorney better. One way is broadly democratic and power diffusing. The other way is power concentrating. For society, right, the uh, the power diffusing is better. And the tech could go either way. Now, this is not a capitalism issue. This is a tech issue. Now, we don't know what sorts of tools there are, what expertise you need to use them, how they enhance your expertise versus replace your expertise. All of these are still unknown.
Well, so let me tie that back to the baseball analogy. So,
Excellent. Let's end where we started.
so the Yankees make this torpedo bat, and it shifts the game. It makes it so that, if you hit the sweet spot, the ball's going to go farther. That does not change. So that part in and of itself is theoretically democratizing. Everyone can use the torpedo bat,
Right.
and and we all have access to the same bat. That doesn't change that some people are just stronger, and some people are better, have
This
better
is the
eye-hand
question, right?
coordination.
Will it mean so? Right. So we don't, and I'm sure the data's out there and we can research this if you're a baseball stat guy. Does it make the average hitter using this bat better, or does it have a sliding scale and the better the hitter you were before the bat, the more it makes you better after the bat?
Right.
Right? That is knowable, right? That's just math. And I don't have the data, somebody does. And that's interesting. Now, you can imagine the Major League Baseball commissioner, or I don't know, whatever the rules body is, saying, wow, higher scoring game, great. I like this. Fans like this, we're going to do it. Or they're saying, oh, well, God, wait a second. Suddenly everyone's hitting the ball out of the park all the time. There's way less strategy. The game is less fun. We're going to ban it.
Right.
Right? Because the MLB has a bunch of things they're trying to balance.
Yeah.
And what's really important is, do the fans like it?
Yeah.
I'm watching World Cup, I'm realizing the reason it's so exciting is because the game is so low scoring that any moment of the game can change the game dramatically in a way that's not true in, baseball.
Right. Now,
It's just so low score. It really, I didn't realize that until this year's World Cup.
my
Shows you're not a
parallel is
sports
that
person.
soccer is just it's very similar in concept and strategy to hockey. It's just on grass instead of on ice, and it's a much
And
larger
with
field.
far fewer fights and head injuries.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I want to kind of wind down, and I'm going to tie this back to um, when I read Beyond Fear. One of the things that stood out to me was that your the way you talked about TSA, the way you talked about the fear of flying, and how that like logically the fear of flying doesn't make sense. Like you know everyone does things every day. They walk out on the street, they get in their car, they do things that are statistically more dangerous that they're not afraid of, but will be afraid about getting into an airplane. Um, but on the TSA side, you know, you talked about, you know, it's security theater. You know, you're having us take off our shoes. You're having us, you know, take our liquids out, which has always been silly to me because you're saying, hey, I don't want you to have this bottle of water because the bottle of water might be an explosive liquid that you're trying to sneak in, and my solution to that is to put it in this trash can next to me with all of the other bottles of suspicious
It
liquid.
doesn't make sense. It is
Right.
true.
And
I've
so it's
written
like
it. I
so it's
wrote
like
this essay
obviously.
decades ago.
Right. So obviously you don't think that's explosive. Otherwise, you wouldn't
Right.
have a trash can filled with it right next to you.
So dangerous. I can't take it on the airplane. Yet so safe. We could dump it in this bin next to all of these people.
Right. So where we sit now, I mean, it's, you know, 20 years later, you know, as AI reshapes the attack surface and the public conversation around it, like, do you think, you know, is security theater getting easier or harder to spot? Is that, you know, and I guess, and this is going to segue us to a different part of the conversation, but as we come up on the 2026 election and we're dealing with deepfakes, we're dealing with AI, we're dealing with these things. It's like it's getting harder for average people who are not technologists and not cybersecurity professionals to separate reality from AI fiction.
Yeah, but I think it's been true reality and non-AI fiction before. I mean, I don't think this is an AI problem. I mean, this is this problem well before AI. Again, I think this is a democracy problem, it's a capitalism problem. It's a problem of surveillance-based business models and a whole bunch of other things like that. Uh, I don't know how AI affects security theater. I haven't thought about that. So security theater, for those who haven't been following me for decades, are security measures that look good but don't actually do anything. Right.
Yeah.
So ID checks at airports are an example of that. Or I mean, you walk around New World and you'll see security that doesn't actually, what is this? It doesn't actually solving any problem, but it looks good and people do it really for psychological reasons. Uh, I don't know. I mean, you need critical skills to spot security theater. Sometimes it's obvious. I don't know if AI is going to make a difference there. I'm not seeing a connection, and I'm thinking about it, but really for the first time. So I might come on your show in a month and say, "Oh, wait. This is what I really think."
Okay. Um, all right. Well, I mean, honestly, I could probably talk to you for a couple hours. We could go
We could do this forever, but
we
you
could
know,
go different directions, but I want to thank you for taking the time, and I really appreciate having you on. And yeah, maybe we will maybe I'll reach out and have you back on in 6 months or so, and we can, you know, talk. Things change fast now, like, you know, like
things change fast. Oh yeah, I mean, there's things I say a couple months ago that are no longer true. I mean, I look at talks I've given in February and like, wow, what was I saying? Things are changing really fast.
all right. Well, thank you.
Thanks for having me.